Prasadi Govinde Namana Brahmani Vaishnavi. One should have complete faith in Mahaprasad, in the holy name, and in the mercy of the Brahmins. If one does not have faith in these three things, then his mentality is hellish condition of life. These are three things the devotees has great faith in. Mahaprasad, the holy name, and the saints. Complete faith. Narada Muni, simply by, in his previous birth as a maidservant, simply by a little association with saintly persons and taking their prasad, he became Narada Muni in his next life. Huh? This is the power of Mahaprasad.
The power is not manifest, that is, we do not have faith.
It is manifesting, but it is manifesting on a subtle platform. That purification is taking place. But Krishna says, as you approach him, he rewards you accordingly. If you approach, the effects will be more understood and manifest to you to the extent that you honor the prasad and not eat the prasad. Right? Devotees do not eat prasad. They honor prasad. You eat food. But that spiritual potency within the food is what makes it prasad. You honor that. You don't just eat it. You accept it. You worship it and you honor it through the process of eating. That should be our consciousness. Prasad is not something that you just, talk all about business and the local articles in the newspaper while you're eating and just fill your belly. That is not the way you take prasad. If you approach Krishna that way, the effects will be very minimal. The effects will be there on a very subtle platform, but very minimal. But if you understand the glory and the potency of this prasad, there is an entire chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is doing nothing but glorifying the power of prasad, the mercy of prasad. With tears in his eyes, he is describing how cannot you understand that this food has been tasted and is decorated with the saliva of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There's no power greater on earth than the mercy of God. Prasad means mercy of God. It's fully manifesting. Srila Prabhupada used to say, even if the most sinful of all sinners takes prasad even once in his life, he's guaranteed human birth in his next life. Otherwise, he would have gone to the lowest species. This is the power of prasad. And in America, we teach vegetarian cooking classes, and we see right before our eyes the power of prasad. Unbelievable. I gained such faith by giving these classes. Because when you're in these colleges, you're giving lectures, teaching Bhagavad Gita philosophy, people say, yes, yes, very good philosophy, very good philosophy. And then they leave and you never see them again. But cooking class, cooking class is just an excuse to give prasad. Because if you just go to college and you say, I want a classroom to give prasad, you think they're going to give you a classroom? They're going to say, go back to West Virginia, you crazy person, right? But if you say, I'm going to teach them how to cook, academic education, culinary arts, they will say, yeah, yes, you can use the classroom. And then we don't even know how to cook. We just say, okay, you take this piece of dough and you roll it into a circle, and then you put it on the flame and you try to make it go like this. And everyone's sitting there, and then you say, okay, now you eat this nice food. And they're all, very nice, very nice. I will take this class. I will come every week. Usually they come just in time to miss the lecture. And then they eat prasad, and we have seen people completely transformed. They come in the room and they look at me and they say, oh my God, it's a Hare Krishna teaching this course, and I've been fooled. I thought it was a cooking class, but it's a Hare Krishna class. But while I'm here, I guess everyone says the food's good, so I'll eat. They just say, if he tries to tell me anything about this philosophy, I'll walk out. And I walk up to the person, and I could see in their eyes, if you try to preach to me, you're finished. And I look at him, and he's just waiting for me to preach. He's waiting to either punch me in the face or just throw the food in my face or walk out. And you can sense when a person is like that. Even a dull person like me can sometimes sense these things. You can see the animosity and fear in his eyes. And then he says, okay, here you are, you've approached me. I say, so how is the food? And he says, very good, very good. I say, thank you very much. And I walk away. He thinks, what kind of a preacher is this? And then a few weeks later, he comes up and he says, what is your philosophy? I want to read your books. I want to chant. I want to surrender. I say, really? What brought about this change? He said, it's something in the food. I don't know. This is not food. This is prasad. He said, whatever it is, I want more. Not once or twice or 3 times or 4 times, but it happens again and again and again. I remember one time I was chanting on the lawn of the campus. Do we have time for one more story? Yes. I was chanting on the lawn of this was at Ohio University. What we used to do is we used to chant. We used to go to a different place every week. Different college, every day of the week. We'd be there for one day. We'd arrive early morning. I would be usually either myself alone or with one other. And had a little car, and then we'd get out of the car and sit on the campus and play either mridanga or harmonium and chant Hare Krishna and have some books and just talk to people. And people would just come by. And there was this one man who was a fundamental born-again Christian. And he was a very powerful preacher. And he came up to me, and I was talking to some other people, and he said, get away from this man, get away from this man. And these students were saying, what do you mean? Why are you telling me to get away? He says, because he is Satan. He is the devil. And I was just sitting there thinking, so many people we meet when we're out preaching. I was thinking, here's another one. Says, this is the devil. Get away from him. If you listen to what he says, your soul will burn in hell forever. And the person started thinking, my God. I said, what he says seems to be making sense. It seems like if I listen to you, he said to this preacher, if I listen to you, my soul's going to burn in hell forever. And he said, no, get away, get away. So then the person started if you do not accept Christianity as the only religion in the world, you must go to hell. You have to go to hell, and it says it right here in my scripture, the only scripture. And there was a crowd of about 100 people that gathered around. And then he just went on and on and on, raving and screaming like a madman. I was thinking, my God, how do you talk to someone like this? He says, you're going to hell, you're going to hell. I said, well, tell me one thing. In front of all the people, I said, just tell me one thing. I'm not going to argue with you because you're not going to listen to anything I say. But just tell me one thing. He said, what? I said, where are you going? Are you going to hell? He said, no, I'm going to heaven. I said, all right, very good. He said, what do you mean very good? I said, you're saying I'm going to hell? He says, yes. I said, very good. I said, what do you mean very good? I said, if you're in heaven, I want to be in hell. If going to heaven means being with closed-minded fanatics like you, I think hell would be a very, very nice place. So then all the students, about 100 students, just started laughing at him, and he just got embarrassed and walked away. But what happened, he found out we were giving a vegetarian cooking class, and he was thinking that these demons, they're giving cooking classes to mislead the innocent students. So he went to the faculty and said, we have to close down this cooking class. He went to the dean of students, we have to. You know what these people are doing? They're teaching false doctrines. And in the name of cooking, they're just alluring our innocent little sheeps. They're in wolves' clothing. They're our little sheep students, and they're going to devour them with this contaminated philosophy if we allow them to serve this food. So the dean of students said, well, we have no right to just close them down. He said, you go there, you go to the class, and you see if they're giving some false doctrine in class. If they're teaching any religion, we'll close them down. But I don't know, as far as I know, they're just teaching cooking. He says, okay, I'll go. Did I ever tell you this story? So this man, he came to the cooking class with 4 guards. They were all his disciples. And when he came in the class, he had this Bible this big. And it had a big cross on the front of it. And he was holding it like this. Because he had this idea that the cross will protect him from the diabolical vibrations that were emanating. So he came in like with a shield like this, and I was serving out the food. You know, he came in, and he was just like, he came up like, and I said, "How are you today?" And he just went, "I have come to monitor your class." And I said, "Oh, very good. Have some prasad." He said, "Have some dinner." So somehow or other, there was about 200 students in the class, and he was just watching them with his cross like this. And as he was watching, he saw that they were enjoying the food so much, he decided to try it. Now we teach these class once a week, just on Wednesday night. So he tried the food, and I came up to him. He was sitting down eating the food, and he was eating just kind of really like. First he asked about 20 students, "Is this food really all right?" I said, "Yes, yes." And I guess the smell of it just attracted his senses, and he couldn't control his senses. So I came up to him, and I didn't want to say too much. I said, "So how do you like the food?" And he went, and he wouldn't say anything. He just held up his Bible. And then he left. The next week, he came back because he was actually monitoring the class, because he was there specifically to see if I was going to talk anything about religion, because I wasn't allowed to talk about religion in this class. As soon as I did, he had 4 people with tape recorders and everything. He was going to close it down. Go to the dean of students and get it closed. So the next week he came back, and he had a small standard-sized Bible. And he was holding it like this. Instead of like this, he was holding it like this. And he came in and he listened to the whole demonstration. And in the demonstration, you know, I just say a few funny things, get people to laugh. Usually I burn the preparation. They all laugh at me for being such a useless cook. Then I give them prasad and they enjoy, right? So that's one thing I learned as a teacher. The more you do things wrong, the more the students like you. Right? Because every student thinks that the teacher is going to do everything just right. When the teacher makes blatant mistakes, the students love to laugh at the teacher when he makes mistakes. And the more they laugh at the teacher, the more they like the teacher. So I used to purposely make mistakes. Like I would be making a masala with ghee and spices, and I'd accidentally, I'd do it on purpose, but it would look like an accident. I'd let the fire go into it and make a big fire, and the fire would go up into the ceiling. And I'd say, "Oh my God, it's burning!" And everyone would be laughing, "Ah!" And then the next week there'd be about twice as many students at the class. Because they tell all their friends that this teacher, he does everything wrong. So they're thinking, well, we never saw a teacher that does everything wrong. We want to take his class. So between me doing everything wrong and all this, and the sweetness of Krishna Prasad, so many people were coming. So this man, he would sit there. He was like a stone. He was so serious and grave, and he'd be sitting there he'd be thinking that I was supposed to be preaching some demoniac doctrine, and I would just be telling people how to roll chapatis, and I would just be burning them and everything, and everyone would be laughing. He'd say, what is this? What can be more harmless than this? And then he would take prasad. That was the second week. Then the third week, no, he had a little pocket Bible. He had it in his pocket, his shirt pocket, and he came alone. And he actually smiled at me that week. He smiled at me. It was the third week he smiled. And I said, how are you? He said, fine, how are you? I said, my God, this man is making spiritual advancement. and then he ate prasad. And then the next week he came, and he didn't have any Bible. This was the fourth week. And he listened to the class, and he was laughing, and then he took prasad. And he took seconds, and he took thirds, and he took fourths. The first time he tasted a little. The second time he took seconds. The second time thirds. He was eating more than any other student in the class. By the fourth week, he was just coming back again and again and again for seconds, thirds, fourths. Then he would take home. I remember the fifth week, he said, I have a church meeting after class. I'd like to bring some of this back for all the members of the church. Is that all right? I said, for you, because you're such a saintly person. And then after 6 weeks of eating prasad, for 6 weeks, once a week, he came up to me. He was real, like, he didn't come up in a comfortable way. He came up like he really was in an anxiety. He had something to ask me. What I was thinking, what usually these people ask, is they say, I have a question for you. I say, yes. I say, do you accept that Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the light, and there is no other way to the Father except through Him? And usually I say, yes, of course. I said, well, what are you doing as Hare Krishna? I said, because Christ and Krishna is the father of Jesus, so Jesus is Guru, very nice. But if you start saying, but this man, if he were to ask any religious question and I were to answer it in any religious way, he was to close me down. So I knew this person was very much anxious to get me closed down. So he came up to me and he said, real serious, I have a question for you. And I was thinking, oh my God, he's going to ask me about this question, always the question they ask. So I said, all right, what is in your question? He said, what is the recipe for halava? And I said, oh, you like halava? He said, I'm addicted to it. I can't stop eating it. He says, I eat about at least 5 or 6 bowls every Wednesday night, and the rest of the week I'm longing for it. I have to have it every day. Can you tell me how to make it? So I sat down and I wrote down the recipe for him, and he said, thank you very much. And then he went home. Then the next week, the 7th week, he came and he said, how come when I made it, it doesn't taste like when you make it? And I said, this I'm not allowed to talk about in class. He said, then we'll go outside of the classroom and you can tell me secretly anything about your philosophy, leave. And I'll never come back. I've been coming for 6 weeks, you never said anything philosophy, but your food is so good, I just can't stop eating this food. He said, what is your philosophy? Do you have any books? I said, yes, sit down. He asked questions for 3 hours. The next week, he read the books. He said, all it talks about in this books is chanting. Teach me how to chant. I gave him beads. Then he became the president of our student organization, called the Hare Krishna Student Organization. And he was a teacher in the philosophy department, and he convinced every philosophy teacher, professor, to invite me to give lectures in the classes. There were 12 professors in the philosophy department. Every day of the week we were giving lectures in philosophy classes. And he would come to each one. And he would always introduce me saying, he is a very learned person in religious life. You must listen to him. I was thinking, what have I done? All he did is eat prasad. Believe me, prasad has immense potency, whether you know it or not, whether you admit it or not. I remember there was one devotee, he was a sannyasi, his name was Vishnu Jan Swami. And he used to say that the greatest power on all the earth is apple chutney. Huh? He said, our apple chutney makes more people God conscious than any other religion in the world. And there's a great truth to this. The power of prasad is inconceivable. Therefore, one who has faith in prasad, in the holy name, and in the Brahmins, the devotees, that person will never have any impediments in his spiritual growth. So now with this empowered information invested within our heart, we should honor prasad. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.